All right, let's rock and roll. This is a Valentine's Day suction arrow. This yielded about 10,000 over the lifetime of the product. It just sold, it's a novelty product, right? It just sold for one season around Valentine's Day. For this one, what's really cool is he only sent the company a one-sentence description of the product. And obviously he had already been working with this company, it sounds like, but you know, $10,000. I mean, it's not a lot of money, especially, you know, taxes and all that fun stuff. But, you know, at least he took an idea to an invention and got paid. Another one in the novelty section made roughly about $10,000 as well, as a spinning pen. And for this one, he just sent the company a simple drawing of the product, which I thought was cool. All right, so this one is called Cool Pals Ice Packs. It's just an ice pack that goes in like a kid's lunchbox. Roughly around $10,000 again. But this one, he sent the company a basic paper prototype. So I think it's cool to keep in mind, yeah, all these made roughly the same, but the idea, or at least the method that he took the idea to the company with, was all different, which is pretty cool. Plush Puppets, similar thing. He was sending the company different drawing ideas of these puppets. Pretty awesome. So I think this was one of Stephen Key's real big events. And shout out Stephen Key, if you don't know who that is, check out the Invent Right YouTube channel. This is his, I think his first big product, the Michael Jordan wall ball. You'll see the prototype he sent to the company, but you can see the numbers right there. Watch the commercial.
Go one-on-one with Michael Jordan right in your own room with Michael Jordan wall ball.
Best looking backboard I ever seen.
Michael Jordan wall ball from Ohio Art Sport.
That was the prototype that he sent the company. He said he made it at Kinko's, spent maybe 25, 30 bucks in materials. It did 100 grand its first year, and royalties to him, right? So the company probably sold, I don't know, whatever multiplier that is, over $1 million worth of product. And he said then it was fairly consistent over the next few years, and it sold for about a decade and roughly about 100 grand a year in his pocket. This is Stephen Key's next, I think this arguably his biggest industrial product. It's called the Spinformation Label. It's a really cool product. Increases the readable area on a pill bottle by up to, I think it's like 70% or something crazy. But basically it's a twisting label, which you'll see in a closer up picture in the next ad with Alex Trebek.
Sundown Herbals presents its remarkable Twist and Learn label. It works like an herbal information center that helps you learn about herbs simply by turning the label. Sundown's new Twist and Learn label, where to turn for help.
Once again, pretty cool. Another celebrity endorsement on the product. So he, you know, this is what he claims, right? This was his one big idea, and he has a book called One Simple Idea. But this, I think, was his big goal, or his big product. Now, he said at the height of it, he was getting $250,000 royalty checks every quarter. So imagine making $1 million on your product every single year. Granted, you know, it takes a while to ramp up to that while they're commercializing it, while they're selling it to their customers, etc. And that might only go on for a few years or maybe even a year. But I just think that's a pretty awesome return on investment. This product, and I don't know if there's necessarily a correlation to time spent you know, researching and developing the product, if they're, you know, compared to the royalties you'll eventually get. I think sometimes it's kind of a perfect storm and they both just meet in the middle and then boom, it's a hit product. But this one he did invest quite a bit of time and effort into, right? Took in multiple variations. He said he spent about $20,000 in prototypes and you know, perfecting the process of it. But look, in the end, it allowed him to get larger royalties because the product was just better, and it sold really well. And this was a very commercial product. So I think when you're inventing, it's easy to get caught up in novelty, toys, games, things that we enjoy. And some of those can go bonkers, don't get me wrong. I personally like the idea of selling industrial, right, and making products that are commercially viable. I think it just could yield a pretty big net in the end. This one's super cool. So this is Connie Garrissey, and she's Australian, I believe, but that's her pool broom in the upper left of the catalog. The orange Aqua fingers is what she coined it. This company is cool that she licensed with because she's selling it herself on her website and also through them. And what I mentioned earlier about refunding patent investment, she spent about $15,000 to get the patents in place originally on this idea. They actually reimbursed her that up front so that they could, you know, own the rights to the patent, which is pretty cool. And her first royalty check was $11,000 after 3 months, which is pretty awesome. So that's like a real, I love that one because it's such a real life, let me pause it real quick, just such a real life example of a product that's, you know, you could think of, you know, she made the prototype and kept it in her kid's soccer bag or something like that and showed it to the company, and it was, you know, they put in their catalog and they started selling, and look, she made 11 grand. Like I said, that's times 4 per year, $44,000 on an idea, and it maybe took you, I don't know how much she spent. Her effort was really spent in the patent process of this, because it cost her about $15,000. But look, she got that reimbursed instantly with the company, as a kind of goodwill to the sales of the product. So, all right, so if you've made it this far, you know that licensing is really renting out your product to a company, an existing company that has an infrastructure for marketing, sales. They probably have, you know, already established customer base that then they can sell this product into. That's the big advantage of it, because you're not having to build a customer base yourself and launch this business yourself, you know, foot all the money for the purchase orders, etc. Just real quick on the economics. So your royalty rate is going to be just one factor of this overall formula. So the royalty rate is first, and typically that's anywhere from, you'll see in the next slide, 3 to 7.5%, with the average, I think, being about 5% based on what I've researched. The second variable is going to be the annual product volume. So how much is the company actually selling of this product? And third, the sales or the buy price. What are they selling it for? So if they're selling it directly to consumers, their consumers, that's going to be the price multiplier. If they're selling it wholesale to a retailer like a Walmart or whoever else, that's going to be the sales price in this case. And then you multiply all those three together, and you're going to get your potential annual royalty amount, right? And that's going to be divvied up in quarters typically. So without further ado, let's jump in to the next slide. All right, so I wanted to put this together because these are the things you also need to think about when you're negotiating your license deal. And this is all the stuff that's top of mind right now, because I'm about to start reaching out to companies with my idea, and this is all things that I'm glad I learned prior to that. So I hope this helps. Number one is an advance check. Now, this doesn't seem as common nowadays. However, a lot of stories and a lot of inventors that I've seen and heard in the past on YouTube have talked about getting an upfront check. Sometimes this has to do with how much you've invested into. A lot of inventors will do a patent, go through the patent process and spend, upwards of $10,000 to get all that, get the ball rolling on that. And some companies actually might appreciate that, and they want to pay you, really reimburse you for those expenses, because they want to own the right to that patent, right? Or they want to own the deal for that patent and that IP. So some will actually advance you a check. Typically, this will come out of future royalties from what I've seen. So, let's say you get a $20,000 check up front. Your first license check, if it even is $20,000, that would probably get negated by that. Or vice versa. So just for ease of math, you get a $20,000 advance. Let's see your first royalty check. This would probably be a lot, but it was $40,000 after a quarter. They would obviously deduct that $20,000 from the $40,000, your first $40,000 royalty check. So you would net $20,000 on the first royalty, but you do get a nice upfront. And for a lot of us inventors, right, that we put our blood, sweat, and tears and a good amount of our money into inventions, trying to get them to a point where we want to share them with companies. And that's a mistake we'll talk about. Maybe not a mistake, but it's a topic we'll talk about in another video. But we've spent a good amount just to get them to this point. So it's something that might be an option. And if it's on the table nowadays, we still should try for it, right? It's just one more variable in our total license deal negotiation. Number two being a minimum annual guarantee. Now, this is super important because this is going to really help you understand how much you're going to make per year guaranteed. So if the company didn't sell enough of your product to really, hit this level, they still have to come out of pocket and pay you this amount. I think this can be powerful because it's going to give you an idea how much, like I said, you're going to make for the year, but also it kind of gives you some protection because it's their skin in the game. It's their guarantee to you that they're going to work hard in marketing the product, selling the product, because they don't want to, let's say your minimum annual guarantee is $40,000 or $100,000. They're not going to want to have to foot the bill if they undersell the product and then, come out of pocket $50K to make up for what they owe you for the year. So minimum annual guarantee is the second variable, and this is something I haven't seen personally more than, well, hard to really say. One example that I can think of, which you'll see later, is a $60,000 minimum annual guarantee. So I've seen $40,000, I think I've seen $60,000, maybe up to $80,000, but potentially it could be way more. Just depends on that formula we went over at the beginning of the video. Right, your royalty rate times your the annual sales volume of the product times your sales price. That's going to really, those are the levers that you want to map out for your product and see, okay, Do you have an estimate of how many products the company is currently selling of maybe a different variant of your invention or a different SKU? And that'll give you a rough idea for those levers you can start to pull with them when you start discussing minimum annual product. If you have a really low price product, they don't sell a ton of volume, it's going to be a lot harder to get a $100,000 guarantee than if you had a high price product, high volume, that obviously 100,000 isn't even a drop in the bucket when it comes to the overall revenue numbers for the annual revenue numbers for that product in particular. Number 3 is going to be royalty timing. So as I mentioned, you can get your payouts monthly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. And that's typically what I've seen is a quarterly check, closing business. The company is going to close their books for the quarter. Then 3 to 4 weeks later, when they've determined what your royalty is, they're going to write you a check. And that's just typical, sales commission structure. If you've ever worked a sales role, that's typically how you get paid out. They close the books. 3 to 4 weeks later, you get the commissions check for that previous quarter. Quarterly, as I mentioned, is the most common, but I have heard it mentioned an annually or a monthly. Now, obviously, in our day-to-day life, right, expenses, come monthly. So monthly, I think, would be really nice, but quarterly is the most common from what I've seen. But monthly is something maybe we could strive for. And the fourth being royalty rate. So royalty rate is typically from 3 to 7.5%. I've heard of a royalty rate up to 25%. I don't know exactly which product that was, but I have heard of it. Typically, that 5% being the middle ground for your standard royalty rate. But this all depends, once again, on those variables, on what is the annual product volume that they're selling. If it's a high volume product, high price, this could be, less 3% would yield you what a low volume, high product price, or vice versa, whatever the inverse of that is, could net you. So just play with the variables, because all I'm saying is the end result might be the exact same if you have a high sales price and a lower royalty rate, or vice versa. Also, to touch on royalty rate, I really do think that our ability to go to these companies and demand a higher royalty rate is based on, and not that we're going to come in heavy-handed, I'm just saying it's really based on how much work we have into the idea. Because if you come in and you know the industry, you've done your research, you know through and through roughly how much they sell, how much their sales price is, who their customers are, I just think you have a lot more knowledge into that conversation, and they're going to be like, wow, this is a valuable partner. This is someone we would be willing to pay 8% to in a royalty rate versus a 3%, right? So I think just overall as a good theme, knowing your stuff, right? Being a professional of your idea, being a true innovator and being a true inventor and just a professional in business is coming in knowing your numbers, and ultimately that's going to yield us a higher royalty rate in the end. So without further ado, let's jump into some cold hard examples where you can actually see real products, real people, and real money. It's called the Light Chaser. Now, if you're American, or even if you're not, I'm not sure how international these are. This product was super big. I was just talking to my roommate actually about, growing up when they had like parades in your neighborhood, they would sell those in carts, or any big parade they have street vendors selling these. It's called the Light Chaser. He's made over $10 million in royalties over the lifetime. This thing is sold for, I don't know exactly what year he invented, but decades. He did say a third of his royalties went to his agent. So I believe that would be a licensing agent that he worked with to probably land some of those deals with the companies. So the agent's doing pretty well, collecting a third. And you obviously, as an agent, if you were an agent, you might only have one of those ideas, but still pretty damn good. And it's still selling today through Disney. A lot of those examples he showed, R2-D2 and stuff, a lot of very big companies still selling it. He sounds like, well, he's kind of a serial inventor from what I've seen. He has multiple other products, but he mentions he made this prototype in like 3 hours. He had the existing parts in his workshop. And he did mention he worked with a company at the very beginning that was trying to sell it, and the sales were just very slow. They weren't marketing it very well, and they were having issues. But when I believe he changed companies, and that's when it started to take off. Or they got like a specific customer that really boosted this product, and then they started getting, other license deals with the Disneys and these different products that are different companies that want to put their mannequin or their little avatar on the top of the Light Chaser, which is pretty cool. So it's not always a direct hit immediately. Sometimes maybe you have to change the variables, or you have to help the company market the product to really hit scale. All right, and lastly, this is Lisa V. Lloyd. She has a YouTube channel at I Can Invent. She actually invented multiple hair products. This one's called the French Twister. I believe this was her first invention. She licensed when she was about 23. And she made the prototypes actually out of old hangers. If you think of like a dry cleaning hanger, just a metal hanger that typically has felt on the top sides just to hold your clothes on it. She actually used one of those as the initial prototype. Pretty awesome. And as I mentioned, since she's licensed other hair products. Her story's cool, and she actually licensed this quite a few years ago. I think she licensed this about 28 years ago. So in the 90s, I believe. And her first, they actually advanced her 20,000. She mentions in this video that I clipped here that she asked for 20,000, and the founder of Scunci, this company right here, SUNCI, didn't bat an eye, right? They were on the phone, and he was like, 20,000 done. And then she regrets not asking for more in that case. In this one, she did negotiate a $60,000 annual minimum. So that's pretty cool. Over this lifetime, I did the math. Now she says she sold about 30, her inventions have sold about 30 million in retail sales. So I just kind of divided that out by like the royalties, divided by this product. I saw another video up to whatever year she sold like 15 million. So I just did the math. I think she's made probably over $1 million realistically in lifetime royalties on this one, but I just put 750,000 to be safe. She's still selling a multitude of products. So shout out Lisa Lloyd. She puts a lot of awesome content out there too. So you can check out her YouTube channel. So, all right, guys, that's it. So that's how much money, real examples, real people, real inventions that, you know, hopefully inspire you to keep pursuing your idea and for us to get our next idea license. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.